While there continues to be a lot of chatter over President Biden's pardon of his son Hunter over the weekend, easily overlooked amid the sound bites and knee-jerk reactions can be just how significant the sweeping pardon is. No modern U.S. president, with maybe the exception of Gerald Ford's pardon of Richard Nixon, has ever issued such an absolution until Biden's full and unconditional pardon of his son, going back almost 11 years. Hunter Biden has effectively been given a free pass for any federal law he might have broken over the past 11 years. Now, what could the impacts of this pardon be? What message does it send? And what does this mean for the investigations that have been underway on the shady business practices of the Biden family? With me now to discuss this and more is Congressman Nathaniel Moran. He serves on 3 House committees, including the Judiciary Committee and the Foreign Affairs Committee. He represents the 1st Congressional District of Texas. Congressman Moran, welcome back to Washington Watch. Great to see you.
Thanks, Tony. Great to be here. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving last week.
I did. It was very good. And you?
A fantastic Thanksgiving. Luckily, I got 2 turkeys correctly done before lunchtime.
Hey, that is an accomplishment. So let's start, before we jump into the Hunter Biden situation, let's touch on the issue in South Korea. How significant is this? The president there declaring martial law, only having to retract it about 6 hours later after the National Assembly overruled him.
Yeah, this is really significant, and frankly, this is very concerning because we're talking about a strategic ally in a very important region of the world for us, but an ally that has got a democratic basis to it, and we want this to see the rule of law upheld. And what President Yoon did is certainly concerning because martial law should be the very last thing that is resorted to, and as the facts roll in, boy, you wonder what was the foundational basis for this. I know he's had a lot of opposition from Leader Lee's party and a lot of internal struggles, leadership struggles as well. And you look back just a couple of years ago when he got elected in 2022, he just won by a small margin, 1% over the opposition party. And he was, of course, the one pushing back against North Korea more than the other party. But still, the other party controls about 192 of the 300 seats in the parliament there, and just about 8 seats short of what they need to impeach President Yoon. And you wonder, really, was this a politically motivated stunt on his part? Was this a politically motivated activity to reduce the influence of the opposition party and to try to quell the growing internal problems he's having in his own party? I hope that was not the case, but certainly this is very concerning for a democratic Korea.
It does when you look at what is included in the declaration of martial law. This is basically all news and media publications are now under the control of the government. No political gatherings, no opposition, even an ability to crack down on fake news. I mean, this is, as you said, this is stuff we would expect from totalitarian governments. But when this starts to come into democracies, I think it's something we should take note of.
Yeah, absolutely we should. And you're exactly right. When you're talking about the rights of the people to associate with one another, to push back against the government, and we've talked about this here in America, when the government begins to decide what is correct information and misinformation, that is a slippery slope that we do not want to go down here in America, and we don't want to see our democratic partners around the world give into that. It's an easy and susceptible pathway to go down to because governments want to tend to believe that they have the truth. But as we've already seen here, you've highlighted at the beginning of the hour about the COVID information that we got during the COVID time period. Government oftentimes is wrong, and government should not be the purveyor of what is truth and what is not truth. We need to let free press and free expression of speech happen. And we want to see that happen with our democratic partners around the world, too.
Yeah, because we certainly would not want to see that happen here in the United States, regardless of what party might be in power. What allows us to do course corrections is when the American people have the full ability to express themselves and peacefully assemble and seek the redress of grievances that they have. We can do it at the ballot box, but there's other times to do it as well, and it's important that we protect those rights.
Absolutely. That's exactly. They're essential and foundational to preserving the democratic institutions that we have here. And we need to make sure to reinforce that with our partners around the world, that they need to make clear that that's going to be upheld in their own countries. Otherwise, the democratic processes there cannot be trusted.
So let's talk about here at home, Congressman Moran, about the pardoning of Hunter Biden. Now, presidential pardons are not new. Maybe a little different, pardoning your own son for criminal behavior that he both pled guilty to and was convicted of. But going back almost 11 years, that's quite significant. Does this shake the trust in our government institutions?
It should shake the trust in government institutions, but I don't think anybody should be surprised by this pardon. Even when President Biden months ago was saying he promised he would not pardon his son, he promised to abide by the verdict, and then after the conviction reinforced that and said he promised to do it. And then we saw the press secretary again validating those statements and saying, listen, President Biden is not going to let his son off the hook. He's going to embrace what the jury is going to do. We knew then that those were false words. Anybody that was listening closely knew that that was not going to actually come to fruition. This should not be unexpected, but it should be shamefully received, because truly this just reinforces, I think, the Biden's legacy of promoting a two-tier justice system, of saying there is one level of justice for the Biden family, and there is a different level of justice for the rest of Americans, ordinary Americans, because no other ordinary American would get this kind of treatment. And certainly a 10-year, 11-year, going back to January 1st, 2014, having as broad a scope as we've seen since really the Nixon pardon, saying whatever he's done under federal law, he's going to wipe away with a pardon. It's atrocious to see that happen. And it's equally atrocious to hear the excuses now for him to come out and say, well, you know, he was targeted because he was my son, and so he was specially targeted, so I'm going to give him special treatment. That's not the case. And certainly nothing's changed since August or July, when he said and reaffirmed again, I promise I won't pardon my son. If anything, Hunter Biden's been given preferential treatment over the past decade, and here he gets another preferential hand.
Speaking of the family, does this put other family members in jeopardy now that Hunter has this pardon? He cannot plead the fifth if he's called to testify regarding other activities that the Biden family has been involved in.
Yeah, it is a legal conundrum for them at this point in that regard. But I do think that there was going to be some problems if perhaps he wasn't given this pardon, from when you're looking at it from President Biden's family standpoint, because without the pardon, he's got incentive to go to the feds and say, hey, I've got more information on my family if you'll let me out of jail. And given the lack of character that Hunter Biden has, I could have seen him doing that, throwing some of his family members under the bus specifically to get out. So, you know, you can argue one way or the other for which is the best benefit for the Hunter Biden family, but truly this is just more of a father protecting a son. And I bet you if you trace him back to his childhood, this is what President Biden did from the very beginning. And that's why Hunter grew up the way he did, believing that he could escape any consequences for his actions.
Is this the last of it, or is this something we're going to hear more of even into the next Congress?
I think you're going to continue to hear more of it just generally as the Biden family gets exposed. And I think there would be more exposure of the bad deeds that they did, not just Hunter, but throughout the family itself. So you're going to hear more about it. But certainly as the president, he has the sole authority to grant this pardon. And it's unfortunate that he's exercised this authority in such an abusive way.
Well, I do think Congress should, and I hope they will continue to look at this, because justice needs to be done, no matter how long it takes. Congressman Nathaniel Moran, thanks so much for joining us. Always great to see you.
My pleasure. Thanks, Tony. Have a great day.
You too.